Why hasn't Cathy Engelbert been replaced yet? When will that happen, and will it be important?
He said, when will it happen? Like he knows. Dan Le Batard is talking like he already know it's about to happen. He said, not only why hasn't she been replaced, when will she be? I know it's about to happen. Come on, man.
Why hasn't Cathy Engelbert been replaced?
Okay, so Dan Le Batard just asked when Cathy Engelbert's gonna be replaced. Not if, but when. Like he already knows the answer, and based on what's happening behind closed doors right now, he's not the only one talking like Engelbert's exit is inevitable. And look, this isn't speculation anymore. We're talking about 3 separate insiders from 3 different parts of the basketball world, all saying the same thing, that the WNBA's commissioner is on borrowed time, seriously shaping the future of the WNBA.
It will be very important. I do believe it's coming. I do not believe anything is going to happen until they can get this new CBA ratified, because that's ridiculous to have someone in high-level conversations and then to bail right when we're actually reaching like critical time in the space, I think is asinine. So I don't anticipate any change happening before then, but I do anticipate a change coming.
I do believe it's coming. Elle Duncan doesn't hedge. She doesn't say maybe or possibly. She states it as fact on national television. And then she explains exactly why Engelbert can't survive this. I mean, the comparison to Roger Goodell is brutal, but accurate, right? Goodell gets booed at every NFL event. Fans despise him. Players mock him publicly, but he survives because the owners stand behind him. They know he's working for their interests, protecting their money, fighting their battles. Engelbert doesn't have that protection. And
I talked to an executive in the NBA just about sort of the precarious situation that she's found herself in. And, you know, I think the issue that they raised for me is that, like, Roger Goodell gets called a lot of names. He's maligned, like, by fans. He gets booed everywhere he goes. And most of that is because everyone believes that he only works for the owners and he's got the owner's interest in mind only, right? So he's in with the owners and he's not in with the players. That's the idea, at least, the narrative that swirls. When it comes to Cathy, she doesn't necessarily have great relationships with the teams or the players. So if you're not, if you're not like currying favor with either side, I just don't know how you survive it. And I watched her, y'all, get booed mercilessly.
Here's where it gets damning. Elle Duncan talked to an NBA executive about Engelbert's situation. I mean, think about that for a second. People in the NBA front offices are discussing the WNBA commissioner's job security. And what did that executive tell her? Engelbert doesn't have great relationships with the teams or the players. Read that again. She's alienated both sides of the negotiating table. The players have been vocal about wanting her gone, led by Nafisa Collier's relentless criticism over the past 2 months. But now we're learning the owners aren't happy either, and this contradicts everything we thought we knew. The conventional wisdom was always, well, Cathy's safe because she's the owner's commissioner. We assumed the billionaire team owners were protecting her, that they appreciated how she raised capital and secured sponsorships when the league was struggling, but turns out that assumption was wrong.
The WNBA finals when we were in Phoenix, and I think it shocked her. I think it was really off-putting to her to see how she has become the villain in this story. And I think she's done a really good job raising capital throughout the years where it wasn't as easy to raise capital, where we didn't have numbers and metrics to prove that this was a great business strategy. But I also think that, like, the relationship has clearly deteriorated to a place where I don't think it's ever going to be fixed. And if you at least had the owners on your side going, that's our girl and we're going to make sure she stays. But I don't think she has that either. So if you don't have either side, I just don't know how long you're in for this job.
I watched her get booed mercilessly at the WNBA Finals when we were in Phoenix, and I think it shocked her. October 2024, Game 5 of the WNBA Finals. Caitlin Clark hands Engelbert the trophy for the ceremonial presentation, and the Footprint Center erupts in boos, not polite disagreement, merciless booing, and according to Elle Duncan, who was there covering the event, Engelbert was genuinely shocked by the hostility. She didn't see it coming, and that reaction tells you everything about how disconnected she's become from the league's fan base. The players have been criticizing her publicly for months. Social media has been brutal. The CBA negotiations have exposed deep fractures in her relationships throughout the organization. And somehow she still didn't expect to get booed at the finals. That's not just tone deaf. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of where she stands.
Might be too fractured at this point, but we'll see. Hammond at it. Okay. Now we got to get to this right here. This is where the juicy part is. ESPN's L. Duncan addresses Cathy Engelbert's future. ESPN analyst L. Duncan was the guest on a November 18th episode of Dan Le Batard's show and was asked when Engelbert might be replaced as WNBA commissioner. She said, "I do believe Engelbert being replaced is coming. I do not believe anything is going to happen until they get a new CBA ratified, because that's ridiculous to have someone in a high-level conversations and then to bail right when we're actually reaching critical time in the space."
But L. Duncan
Hong King isn't the only insider predicting Engelbert's departure. Becky Hammond went on CNBC and Novo and basically said the same thing. And remember, Hammond is the head coach of the two-time defending champion Las Vegas Aces. She's not a media personality throwing out hot takes for clicks. She's one of the most respected minds in women's basketball, someone with direct access to league operations and ownership conversations. And she went on national business television to say Engelbert's relationships with players are too fractured to repair. I don't know if Engelbert can ever retract and get that traction back from those conversations. Hammond is choosing her words carefully here, but the message is clear. Whatever Engelbert said in private conversations with players, whatever happened behind closed doors, it damaged relationships beyond repair. And in Hammond's prediction, they're probably going to look for a change in leadership.
L. Duncan assessed what could be in store for WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Now, we have heard before Cathy Engelbert could be on her way out, but they don't want to get rid of her in the middle of the negotiations. It's a lot going on. Get a deal done and then move on from her. That is likely how this thing may play out. Let's get a look at the article. WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert has been subject to a ton of criticism from the women's basketball community, including both fans and players, for quite some time. But these feelings have intensified as a result of the ongoing negotiations of the league's next collective bargaining agreement.
So what exactly did Engelbert
Engelberts say that caused this collapse. Nafisa Collier has been dropping hints in interviews for 2 months, referencing alleged comments that players found disrespectful or dismissive. We don't have the full quotes yet, but Collier has been relentless in her criticism. She's the president of the Players Union, and she's made it clear that repairing the relationship with Engelbert isn't on the agenda. The players want her gone, and they've apparently made that a significant part of the CBA negotiations. So think about the leverage play happening here. The current CBA expires soon. The league just had its most successful season in history, driven almost entirely by Caitlin Clark's rookie year. Ratings exploded, attendance shattered records, sponsorship money flooded in, and the players know they have unprecedented negotiating power right now. And they're using it not just to demand better salaries and working conditions, but to demand a leadership change.
I think it's asinine. So I don't anticipate any change happening before then, but I do anticipate change coming. How you gotta read between the lines, guys. We've had head coaches say they believe she's about to be replaced. We've had players say they believe she's about to be replaced. We have analysts saying she's about to be replaced. And come on, read between the lines, guys. Come on. Let's take a listen to this.
The timing of all this matters. L. Duncan makes a crucial point about why Engelbert is still in her position right now. Despite all the criticism, you can't fire your lead negotiator in the middle of CBA talks. It would be organizational chaos. Imagine trying to finalize a collective bargaining agreement worth hundreds of millions of dollars while simultaneously searching for a new commissioner, bringing them up to speed on months of negotiations, and rebuilding trust with a players' union that just forced out your predecessor. So the league is stuck. They need Engelbert to finish these negotiations, get a deal signed, and then they can move on. It's the only logical sequence, and based on what Duncan Hammond and Le Batard are all saying, that's exactly the plan. Finish the CBA, announce the deal, let a few weeks pass, and then quietly announce that Engelbert is stepping down to pursue other opportunities, or whatever corporate language they use to save face. And here's what makes this significant for the future of the WNBA. Commissioner isn't just a ceremonial title. This person shapes league policy, negotiates media rights deals, manages relationships with team owners, represents the league in public, and sets the strategic vision for growth. Engelbert took over in 2019 when the league was struggling financially. She deserves credit for what she accomplished in that role. She brought in new sponsors when companies weren't taking women's sports seriously. She negotiated a media rights deal that kept the league visible. She oversaw expansion to 12 teams and has more expansion on the horizon. But the job has evolved. The WNBA isn't a struggling niche league anymore. The 2024 season proved that women's basketball can drive massive ratings, sell out arenas, and generate legitimate mainstream interest. Caitlin Clark's rookie season averaged 1.2 million viewers for Indiana Fever games. The playoff games featuring Clark drew over 3 million viewers. Those are numbers that rival many NBA regular season games. The league is at an inflection point, transitioning from survival mode to growth mode, and that requires different leadership skills. The players clearly believe Engelbert isn't the right person to lead that transition, and based on what Elle Duncan learned from her NBA executive source, at least some owners agree, that's the fatal combination. You can survive if the players hate you, but the owners support you, like Gedele and the NF. You can probably even survive if the owners are frustrated, but the players respect you. But when both sides want you gone, when the players are publicly campaigning for your removal and the owners are privately discussing your replacement, that's unsustainable. The CBA negotiations have exposed all of this. Prioritization remains the biggest sticking point. The players want the league to require that WNBA players make the league their primary commitment, not allowing them to play overseas during the off-season. The league has resisted this, because international play is how most players actually make their money. WNBA salaries, even with the proposed increases, don't compare to what top players can earn in Europe or China. But prioritization isn't just about money, it's about respect, about the league treating itself as a premier product, rather than a side project. Engelbert's handling of this issue apparently rubbed players the wrong way. We don't know exactly what she said in those private negotiating sessions, but Nafisa Collier's repeated references to problematic comments suggest Engelbert either dismissed player concerns or framed the issue in a way that felt disrespectful. And once you lose the room in negotiations like that, it's almost impossible to get it back. The WNBA Players Association has been remarkably unified throughout this process. You've seen board members signing with Unrivaled, the MU 3-on-3 league that's offering equity stakes in Better Be. You've seen Collier, the union president, signing with Project B. These aren't just business decisions, they're leverage plays showing the league that players have options now. The WNBA isn't the only game in town anymore. If the league doesn't meet player demands, if they don't show proper respect and offer fair compensation, players can take their talents elsewhere. That's a massive shift in negotiating power. 5 years ago, the WNBA could basically dictate terms because players had no alternative. Unrivaled is backed by serious money and offering equity. International leagues are paying top dollar. The bargaining dynamic has completely flipped, and Engelbert apparently didn't adjust her approach to match this new reality. Watch that initial interaction again from the fine. The correction wasn't just about the CBA negotiations, it was accumulated frustration from an entire season of questionable decisions. The way the league handled Caitlin Clark's rookie year, the lack of protection from physical play that often crossed into dangerous territory, the inconsistent officiating, the scheduling that put the league's biggest star in back-to-back games while other teams got rest. Fans noticed all of it and they blamed Engelbert. Now compare that to how other sports commissioners handled their public image. Adam Silver in the NBA is generally well liked because he communicates clearly, seems to genuinely care about player welfare, and makes decisions that fans can understand even when they disagree. After Gedele in the NFL is despised by fans, but bulletproof with owners because he makes them money and takes all the heat for unpopular decision, Engelbert has managed to achieve the worst of both worlds. Fans don't like her, players don't trust her, and apparently at least some owners question her effectiveness. The contrast reveals something important about leadership and professional sports. You don't have to be universally loved, you don't even have to be liked, but you do have to be effective, and you do have to maintain strong relationships with at least one of your key constituency. Engelbert raised capital successfully when the league was struggling, but she failed to build the relationships necessary to lead the league through its next phase of growth. Scott Agnes had to know this was coming. Sorry, wrong script reference there. But the point about knowing consequences applies here too. Engelbert had to know that her approach to CBA negotiations would create friction. She had to know that her comments to players, whatever they were, would leak and create backlash. She had to know that the league's handling of the Caitlin Clark phenomenon would draw criticism, and she either didn't care or didn't think the consequences would be severe enough to threaten her position. What makes this particularly awkward is the timing. The WNBA just had its best season. Revenue is up, attendance is up. Ratings are up, sponsorship deals are rolling, and expansion is happening by traditional business metrics. Engelbert's tenure should be considered a success, and yet she's about to be forced out because she lost the support of the people who actually make the product work, the players. That's a remarkable failure of relationship management. This dynamic is going to continue affecting the league even after Engelbert leaves. The next commissioner will inherit a players' union that just successfully forced out their predecessor. That's real power, and the players know it now. They'll expect their voices to be heard, their concerns to be addressed, and their status as the league's most valuable assets to be respect. Any new commissioner who doesn't understand that dynamic will face the same fate as Engelbert. So the question becomes, was Engelbert's approach worth it? Did she accomplish enough during her tenure to justify the burned relationships and hostile acts? She raised money and secured partnerships when the league desperately needed both, but she also failed to build the foundation of trust and respect necessary for long-term success. The WNBA is about to enter its most important phase of growth, with expansion teams, new media deals, and unprecedented public interest, and they're going to do it with a new commissioner starting scratch on player relationships, because Engelbert couldn't or wouldn't adapt her leadership style to match the league's evolution. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Engelbert deserves credit for keeping the league afloat during tough years, or did she fail at the most important part of the job by alienating the players? And who should replace her as commissioner, because that decision is coming soon, whether the league admits it publicly or not? Like and subscribe for more WNBA coverage as this situation develops.